I'll ask those questions.
All right, it is 7:06 p.m. I'll call this meeting to order. Thanks for everybody for joining us this evening. If you would please stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, Rory, if you would call roll, please.
Yes, Councilmember Clever.
Here.
Billings. Here. Gatto.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
And Robinson. Here.
Thank you. Chief Larson, you're up for the Unified Fire Authority Department report.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Pleasure to be with you tonight. I have a short report. I mentioned some things last week during my report, so I'll just kind of mention a few others here. Our captain testing process is well underway. We had 52 firefighters apply for the captain promotional process. That's about 10% of our organization. The first phase consists of a written test. That's going to be held, what is today, the 2nd? It's going to be held tomorrow and Thursday. It consists of 100 multiple choice. The top 27 candidates are advanced from that. The final phase will include an incident exercise, which they're giving us a fire scenario and they role play as if they're in command of that incident and scored on how they follow policy and procedure, even calmness, those type of things. For example, they might be given a scenario of a fire in a duplex and a mention over the radio, a potential meth house. How would they respond to that? There are different procedures for that type of fire scenario than there may be for an ordinary one. So something like that may be thrown at them, puts them on the spot. It's pretty stressful. But being in charge of those type of incidents can be. Once all the testing is complete, the promotional registry will consist of the top 20 candidates, and then they're placed on a list, and as openings come, they are processed from that list. That just tells you 20 spots. We've had quite a few retirements over the last little while, and a lot of times when the paramedics fill those, then that leaves gaps in the paramedic spot, and we have to continually go through the process to fill all of those spots. Of course, just a brief mention, the legislative session that ended in March. There were 934 bills presented during the session, with nearly 600 going to the governor for signature. Throughout the session, our legislative committee and our lobbyists, with their assistance, we sifted through several hundred of those to identify and determine potential. Sorry, it's been a long week. I'm feeling like the Dr. Demento song, "My head's above water, so don't make a wave," right? I don't know if you remember that. So back to the legislative session, we sifted through quite a few of those, and that led us to prioritizing 35 bills which we felt could affect UFA. There were 8 or 9 that I was following just in relation to fireworks and building and fire codes that were presented to the legislature. So we were all busy and very involved with that, and I feel that we had pretty good success. The fireworks restriction update. A letter's been sent out to all our municipalities, administration, regarding fireworks restrictions. These are typically sent this time of year to help our communities meet the legislative required deadlines. So we try to keep a little ahead of the ball here. Each municipal legislative body must, before May 1st of each year, define the area that is to be closed to fireworks and provide a map to the county in which the defined area is located. The county must have a map in place and available to the public and fireworks vendors before June 1st. Our Salt Lake County Emergency Management Team, or our UFA Emergency Management Division, usually spearheads that and prints the map and makes it available countywide. If we don't receive any notice of any changes prior to May 1st, the map published will be the same map for the city as the year before. We discussed this briefly in a senior staff meeting this morning. And for Midvale, I'm going to review the restricted areas. Right now, there's a swath down by the river bottoms that really kind of cuts through neighborhoods and backyards, and it isn't really along a well-defined area. So I'm going to get with our GIS and the 16th, is it, Matt?
Yep.
Be able to show you the map of the current restricted area overlaid with perhaps some suggestions, because what the state law states is that the restricted areas must be along a clearly identifiable boundary zone or street, a clear line of demarcation that helps avoid confusion for citizens, and that also has to be as close as possible to the proposed restricted area. So I'm going to take a close look at that and see if there are any recommended changes and have that ready for this group. Did I frame that good enough, Matt? Okay. Let's see. If fire conditions do worsen as the season approaches, causing concern for areas not currently defined or create a hazardous environmental condition, the state law states, then you can contact, that would be me, and we can, the state law does allow for some leeway there to make some changes as we get closer to fireworks season. And I don't know that I see that here for Midvale. In fact, I'm meeting with Mill Creek's City Council Monday. They actually, their 9th East boundary for restricted areas from 9th East. And we had a pretty bad year last year and the year before, and they felt to move the restricted area down. So anyway, we're going to discuss that Monday and see what direction they want to go. It's our responsibility as a fire department to make the recommendation to this legislative body here, and then it's your determination by state law that actually codifies that for restricted areas. March safety message. With melted snow, the budding trees that I'm happy to see on longer days, they're all signs that the warmer months are nearing. I'm really happy about that. For many of us, these seasonal hallmarks are reminders to start spring cleaning in and around our homes. And we've listed 6 key practices and supporting recommendations to minimize the risk of fires and associated hazards with spring cleaning. I'll be sure and get those to Laura. One is properly use and store gasoline, carefully dispose of rags and paint and stain, inspect grills to make sure they're in good working order, keep debris away from your home, and clean out your clothes dryer vent. And then there's some little key points and guides there for each of those. So we'll be sure and get that out so that your citizens can take a look at that. Retirements, sometimes I mention those. I try to do that if it's someone that worked here in Midvale specifically, that may be of more interest, or someone in administration. But I would like to mention one of my fire inspectors who retired after 20 years in the fire department, Lynn Egbert. He came on the fire department kind of late. I think he was in his late 40s, I think, when he came on. And one of the captains bet him $1 that he wouldn't make it through recruit school. And when Lynn retired, we had this huge plaque with badges, and it was kind of a shadow box with badges and pins and all the kinds of things like that would mean something to him. And right in the middle was a dollar bill that was signed by the captain that bet him $1 that he wouldn't make it through training. And there he was. There he was 20 years later. But Lynn served as the area fire marshal for Harriman and Riverton and just did a really good job for us, and we hated to see him go. But thanks for indulging me on that, but I just wanted to mention that. Okay, I think that's about it. Any questions?
I'm just going to add in one thing, and then Chief, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Just for the council to be aware, Chief Burchett with UFA has approached the board. Nothing has been totally approved yet, but actually over-hiring in their next hiring round, just because, as the chief just said, there's a lot of retirements happening, a lot of movement, and so it feels like one of the things we're seeing is that as soon as they get to full staffing pretty immediately, that's changing, and so that means that a lot of the firefighters are taking on mandatory overtime, which is creating stresses within the organization, and so he's approached the board and asked to be able to hire more people than slots. I think it was 6 extra people, if I remember correctly, just to try to start combating that, because it's just been a pretty persistent issue.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll move into public comments. Any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for a public hearing on the agenda may address the city council at this point by stepping to the microphone, giving their name for the record. Everybody will have 3 minutes. We are going to have a timer with the amount of public comments I'm expecting we'll have. I would ask please stick to that 3 minutes. It should be clear for you to be able to keep track of your own time on that. I know we were also maybe going to have some public comments on alcohol in public spaces. If that's what you're here for, we don't actually have a public hearing tonight. So if you plan to address us about either of those items or anything else, now would be the time. Just really quickly on the ceasefire. Again, reiterating, not our expertise, but we are working on a resolution. There is a draft of that resolution. Olivia has a draft of that resolution. There was an initial plan to discuss that tonight, but because usually we meet every other week, just twice a month. We had a meeting last week, this week. We had a lot of budgetary stuff last week that we wanted to make sure we were putting the necessary time towards this and not rushing something that we weren't actually prepared to move forward on. So that's where it was held off on this. But again, Olivia's got a draft. The current plan on it is that our next meeting, we will have a formal discussion, and then our first meeting in May, we would take action and vote on that. That is our normal procedure, that we generally have a discussion and then a vote. So just know that that's our current timeline as it stands right now. And I'm checking my notes to see, just keeping in mind that as part of this, again, because it's not our expertise, want to hear all the perspectives from the folks in the room. We're also looking for other perspectives as well, okay? All right, with that, if you would like to speak, you can step forward to the microphone. Again, you'll have 3 minutes. All we need, though, is just your first and last name for public record.
All right, hi everyone, my name is Olivia Marin. It's really nice to see all of you again. I wanted to take a moment to thank you deeply for acknowledging the things that we said to you last week. I know that this is a very deep, thing that we are witnessing, and I also just wanted to share some encouragement with that. Every public statement that we make counts. Every resolution matters. Every phone call counts. It's the little things that build up the bigger picture, which is liberation for everyone. That is achieved by advocating for the power that we, the people, have. I wanted to take a moment to talk about the last 48 hours in Palestine. I have seen some of the most earth-shattering imagery and videos coming out than I've seen in the last 6 months. Hearing the buildup behind these photos has absolutely broken my heart. To start, Al-Shifa is the beating heart of Gaza's medical system. Take out the heart and you've won, supposedly. The IDF had been occupying Al-Shifa for 2 weeks. There are hundreds of dead humans surrounding the medical complex who were put through horrors that we can only imagine. Dead bodies became one with the ground after being lined up and bulldozed by tanks deliberately. Their hands and feet were tied up before being ran over. The hospital is unrecognizable, burnt to a crisp, windows blown out. It is legitimately falling apart, and it will take years for it to be rebuilt. It has been decimated by the IDF. How can they do this in God's name? How are we scared to speak out against these atrocities? I fear the more supportive we become of Israel's actions, the bigger of a ripple effect that they will cause. I'm going to talk about the World Central Kitchen. Jose Andres communicated with the IDF to get in their aid, food, and people into Gaza. Their vehicles were plastered on all sides, including the tops, with labels that clearly indicated who they were associated with. The IDF has the most advanced military in the world. How can they not take accountability with this deliberate attack? They know where everyone is at all times, yet they're claiming that they don't. To justify their claims, they are deliberately bombing people, places, and things. The UN put out a public statement 3 hours ago deeming Israel's actions unconscionable, stating that over 175 of their own workers were brutally killed by the IDF. They announced that 196 aid workers have now been murdered. An immediate and permanent humanitarian ceasefire is the only option. Humanitarian aid workers need to be protected, like the civilians. And with that, that's all I have for you. So thank you for listening.
Thanks, Olivia.
Hello. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak.
And will you just state your name?
My name is Razan, and I am indigenous to the land of Palestine. And if it's surprisingly to anyone, Arabs are Semite. And I am a Semite. So I'm an indigenous to the land of Palestine. Again, I'm saying it. And I am Semite. My family tree descends from thousands and thousands of years of this land. We contributed to building a nation. My ancestors were known in the port of Haifa. They were intelligent businessmen who worked in trade. Our women worked in our lands. My grandmothers and my great-grandmothers were farmers. And they were attached to the land because they know her more than they know themselves. Our existence is integrated into our land. We love and respect the land more than anything in the world. I take it a little bit with a grain of salt when people say that they don't know much about what's happening, or call it actually a conflict. Have we called what happened to the indigenous people of that land a conflict? I don't think so. There was a colonization that happened, there were ethnic cleansing, and there were land theft. Let's all acknowledge the history so we don't let it happen again. And we're seeing it happen again for us, the indigenous people of Palestine. No, I will call it ethnic cleansing, and I call it brutality against the indigenous people of the land. And no, it is not a conflict. I do want us to start calling things by itself. The international law and the international courts did declare Israel as an occupation, and that was in 1948, before everything has happened. If you don't know much about Palestine, I would encourage you to know about the Haganah militias, Tantura massacre, Deir Yassin massacre, checkpoints, border walls, ethnic cleansing, land theft. Please don't take it as it is a conflict. You already know a history of this nation and this land, so it should not be hard for you to recognize what's happening in Palestine. Indigenous people are being brutally attacked. We've been brutally attacked more than 76 years, and yet we're not seeing humanity prevail. Thank you.
Thank you.
I could stand here today, and my name is Aziz, by the way, Aziz Abu Zaid. I could stand here and talk to you all about numbers, about how many Palestinians have been murdered so far. I could talk about the children that have lost their families, their limbs, their schools for 6 months. Not a single child in Gaza has been to school. And I could talk to you about the genocide of houses, the homicide, that's or the domicide, that's what it was called. That many people in Gaza, about 90% of them now, are homeless, and they are made homeless by the Israeli forces. And I could talk to you about my own family who lost so many members, about 23 members of my own family that I lost in Israeli bombings. As I am from Gaza, I was born there. My ancestors were born into the land before they were ethnically cleansed from Palestine. And I could talk about all of this day in and day out, but I know that you can just Google that information and find out about it yourself. But I'm just going to talk to you as a human being to a human being. And I believe that most of you would look at me and see a human being and not a human animal, just like we were described by the Israelis. And not just described, but also treated as such. At the Shifa Hospital, at Nasser Hospital, where I was born, and at so many places where Palestinians were brutally attacked, where they were treated like animals, they were treated like property, they were treated like the first people who came to this country treated the natives and the indigenous people. I'm trying to tell you why it matters for a city in Utah to speak up against the brutality going on like 7,000 miles away from here. Because it does reflect on people here. It does reflect on all of us that you can see. It does make us feel like we are being used. Our tax money is being used to murder people. Our name as people in America is being used to justify the murder of children, the murder of Palestinians, and this is in no way a defense of whoever is controlling Gaza, but this is something that we have to all acknowledge, that this is a war against the children of Gaza, against the people of Gaza, and not against a single or multiple political factions. And I hope that you guys do the right thing and vote for this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jenna Martin. I'm an anthropology student at the University of Utah, and I'm also an EMT. I think one thing that's really important to remember about the genocide happening in Gaza is that their first responders are no different than our first responders. Maybe the cops are, but the firefighters are firefighters, nurses are nurses, doctors are doctors. Everybody in Gaza is more similar to you and I than we are to our ruling class. So I didn't really have anything written today because I've been very busy, but please vote for the ceasefire resolution because it's been really good to work with you all and be heard. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Can somebody explain what the ceasefire resolution is that you want our city to vote?
I think we can hear the public comments, and then if there's something else that the council wants to add, we can go from there. So if you want to continue.
Hello,
My name is Marta Altuzarra. I'm just going to read the email that I sent this morning to you guys. I'm going to try to read it as fast as I can. Dear City Council members, I am thankful that you are willing to have a meeting to discuss and entertain the idea of adopting a ceasefire resolution and hopefully opening the door to encourage other cities to do the same. As my son will say, please listen with an open mind. And I will add, please listen with an open heart. Adopting a resolution like this one is not only the humanitarian thing to do for our brothers, sisters, and children in another country, but an obligation that we as human beings have with each other in the face of injustice. Every life is precious and should matter. No one should have to fight for their life or live in constant fear of losing it. Bloodshed and suffering cannot be the excuse to inflict back more bloodshed, suffering, starvation, devastation, rape, mass executions, amputations, complete destruction of health systems, targeting of civilians, mainly women and children, targeting of news reporters and medical personnel and their families in the name of self-defense. Before October 7, Gaza was already under a blockade for the last 16 years, meaning Israel had control over their airspace, waterfront, and even gates to enter and leave Gaza. That means Israel government was then and still is able to control the entrance of basic supplies like food, electricity, water, medical supplies, among many other things. Opening quotations, both the occupation and the blockade affects every aspect of life of Palestinians. They dictate where they can live and study and whom they can marry. Oxfam International Organization 2018. In my opinion, this so-called war, where a country with the most powerful and highest tech military in the Middle East, Merchant 2023, supported economically and politically by the United States of America and other very powerful countries, attacks and kills with impunity a confined and trapped civilian population while trying to fight a resistance militia embedded in them. Perfect example of a David and Goliath confrontation or modern days bullying textbook definition. Killing civilians because they live among the ones who cause immense hurt to Israel is the same as if we say that it is okay for us to kill the families, neighbors, and maybe the whole city residents where our mass shooters in this country live. It is absurd, right? Gaza is suffering. The ones that are not dying on the Israeli bombs or bullets or hunger of infections and being tortured, crushed on their tanks, raped in front of their husbands, dads, and brothers, while those witnesses have guns or knives stuck to their necks, and they have to keep their eyes open or being killed. The more we allow and fund this genocide, the more we let them believe that this level of deprivation is okay. And that is the message that we are sending our kids to bed with, along with our goodnight kisses.
Marta, if you could
Thank
just
you so
wrap.
much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And we do have that email. I know I've got it in my inbox, so we've got all that. Thank you.
Mayor, we did not get it.
Okay.
I'll send it to you right now.
Thank you, Rory.
Hello, my name is Amy, and I am here today as an American Jew who has grown up in Utah, and I'm here to call for the City Council to pass a resolution for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. You mentioned that you need time to put together a resolution, but I do want to mention that people in Palestine do not have the time like we do. This is a genocide against Palestinian men, women, and children. Over 30,000 people have been killed, and many more are going to die due to lack of aid, food, water, healthcare, and infrastructure. I am here as a Jew, as a woman, and as someone with a public health educational background to say that enough is enough. Zionism is not Judaism, and it is anti-Semitic to support an immediate. It is not anti-Semitic to support an immediate and permanent ceasefire. We cannot allow the U.S. and Israel to use October 7th as an excuse to cause a genocide among the people of Palestine. Our tax dollars cannot continue to aid in a genocide. We need an immediate and permanent ceasefire. I'm here to say that never again means never again for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Abby Carroll. This is my first time meeting many of you, so I do want to thank you so much for your attention that you've given to my peers, to your constituents about this matter. I am the daughter of a Utah Air National Guard colonel, so I do have some understanding of militia, especially U.S. imperialism. I grew up on 2 different military bases on the West Coast, and I'm just going to tag along to Olivia's comment because there was something that she ran out of time from saying. But the Biden administration in the last 2 days put together an $18 billion aid package for weaponry, money to go to the apartheid state of Israel, and all of this is going to be used to kill the Palestinian people. And like many of my constituents, or my peers, your constituents have said, this is a war on children. Many of the martyrs are children. Many of them didn't even have their first birthday. The Biden administration also authorized 2 weapon transfers to the apartheid state of Israel, which includes 25 fighter jets. Many of those are F-16s and the F-35As that are produced here in the state of Utah by Northrop Grumman. You know, I get that mixed up. There is a flying show that's happening at Hill Air Force Base within the next week or so where they're going to be displaying these fighter jets, and then they're going to be sent to the apartheid state of Israel, and they are going to be killing and maiming Palestinians. There's also 1,800 2,000-pound bombs, and these bombs our own government won't even use because the severity of the casualties that these affect on civilians it's too much. It's too much. But they are being sent to the most surveillanced apartheid state, the most technologically advanced militia warfare state, and it is used against a population that is so valuable to humanity. Palestinian people, I believe, are the heart of humanity truly, and you have 2 Palestinians here. There might be more Palestinians in the room. I'm so sorry if I missed you. But they are perfect examples of the heart of Palestinians, and they're educators, they are teachers, they are healthcare workers, they are entrepreneurs, engineers, these little kids in Gaza that we see every single day that are coming up with water systems and ways to get leaves down from trees so that they can feed their family lemon leaves because there's no more food in the north of Gaza and aid is not getting in. I really encourage you guys to look into all the entrepreneurial activities these children are doing just to stay alive during a genocide, which is something that most all of us in this room have never faced before as children. So they are paving the way for me as an adult to learn how I can be a better student, a better entrepreneur, a better person of humanity and person of the world and use my resources around me. These kids in Palestine have taught me more about plant life than I've learned in my own public education system here in Utah. So I just want to point out that the state of Utah does have a lot of involvement, both weaponry and financially, to the apartheid state of Israel. And thank you for considering the resolution, Free Palestine.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Coover Bingham. I'm a resident of Salt Lake City. First of all, get out of the way to say that I appreciate and want to thank everybody I don't know who's behind the scenes making this resolution on the agenda, but I want to thank you first and foremost for doing whatever you could to make that happen. But I next need to say that it can't be enough, and I'm urging you to please continue to press upon this and continue to try to impress upon City Council to also pass a resolution. This group, as well as about 50 other people on a weekly basis at all the public comment sections, have showed up to try to get Salt Lake City Council to pass a resolution, and we have been met with silence and nothing but disappointment. You say that you are not experts on this matter, but I assure you that no politician in in Utah, in the state of Utah, is demonstrating any expertise whatsoever. And everyone in this room, or anyone in this room that is made this resolution on this agenda, is doing more than anyone else in the state of Utah. So, yeah. So please vote for this and. Yeah, I mean, we can stand up here. I know that you guys have seen the numbers. There's no way you haven't seen the war crimes and the atrocities. What's happening in Gaza, like literally the medical system is being shut down. There are people in this community who are born in hospitals that are bombed to rubble with patients inside of those hospitals. You know, when Russia invaded Ukraine, this entire nation And every politician at the highest levels of governance in this country was up in arms, and it was, we responded to it as if they were bombing hospitals, and it was unacceptable. The same is happening in Palestine, and this nation is standing in silence and just allowing it to happen. And the only explanation for that is racism. There's the only way that we can justify war crimes in one case and not another is blatant racism. There are no justifications for war crimes. There are no justifications for bombing hospitals. There are no justifications for collective punishment on children. There's no reason why a 3-year-old should die or a 3-year-old should live and his family members are all murdered and he remains as the only living member of his family because of something Hamas did or some other justification. There's not another justification. If we believe in international governance and law and the United Nations, the only thing reasonable to do is to do everything in our power to stop the bombs on Gaza, end the siege on Gaza, and to see a ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Sarah. I wanted to express my gratitude mainly to you tonight. That's where I'm coming from. I don't really know what else to say anymore. My peers, as you've seen tonight, and I have spent the last 6 months writing, sharing, calling, posting, grieving, creating, organizing, planning, and studying in our free time to more fully understand what we are witnessing and trying to spend as much time as we can truly witnessing what has been happening in Palestine. Every waking moment has been spent half here and half there for all of us, and at the expense of our family, our relationships, our mental and physical health. We swing from hopelessness to hope more and more, multiple times a day, and every day more and more. We feel more and more exhausted, yet we keep going because we know that what we are experiencing pales in comparison to what the people in Palestine are experiencing in their every waking moment. We sacrifice our comfort in our everyday lives because they have no choice in their discomfort every day. I wanted to say to you today that the Midvale City Council's willingness to hear us, to see, and to consider this ceasefire resolution is everything. It's given us sustainable hope here in the community. As you can see, people have come out today because they've heard this good news and they want to come here and show their support. This has given hope, and choosing to speak out shows the people of Utah that we are willing to do for others as we would have others do for us. That's one thing that I continue to tell my small children when they ask me, why are you so concerned about Palestine? I tell them, sweetie, it's because I would want someone to do this for me as well. I would expect this from my fellow human beings. This is the right thing to do, to stand up. And I don't want you to believe for 1 second that the things a city council has to say about Palestine are not relevant. This resolution means everything. Taking this action says to your constituency and to the world at large that you recognize this moment in history and have chosen not to stay silent, period. Should you pass this resolution, we will always be grateful and remember you for that. So with gratitude in my heart, thank you. Free Palestine.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Weston Nichols. I'm going to start with a story. Last week after the council meeting, I found myself engaged in a heated discussion with my mother. Despite her support for a ceasefire, she adamantly opposed the idea of protesting as a means to achieve change. When I suggested she speak to city council, she dismissed the notion, convinced it wouldn't make a difference. Instead, she confided in me that she prays every night for the safety of those suffering in Gaza. As our conversation unfolded, I became increasingly frustrated by her apparent complacency in the face of such egregious suffering. Her response to the heartbreaking stories of babies abandoned in NICUs, children starving to death, and civilians torn apart by bombings. Maybe it's God's will to take those babies off this earth. And what can I do? I can't go over there to help them, so I pray. I couldn't reconcile her perspective with my own. If I can't disrupt, protest, or organize, and if I can't come before this council to advocate for change, what am I supposed to do? These thoughts weigh heavy on my heart as I stand before you today. The urgency of the situation in Gaza cannot be overstated. Just this past week, the International Court of Justice added more provisions against Israel, and the UN passed a resolution for immediate ceasefire. Yet Israel continues its relentless bombardment of Gaza, disregarding international calls for peace. The United States, instead of using its influence to end the bloodshed, has approved sending over 2,500 more bombs, along with fighter jets and engines worth another $2.5 billion. Every day I find myself grappling with the state of humanity in our world. I simply cannot comprehend everyone's willingness to look away and deflect any conversation on this issue. Your voices are more important than ever, not just here in this council chamber, but among your peers, to reach those we cannot. It's time to draw a line in the sand and demand an end to the violence, and it's time to stop funding Israel's atrocities and call for a permanent ceasefire now. Matt, I cannot thank you enough for your efforts and willingness to communicate and participate. I was notified that you will be reaching out to organizations to try and get a broader opinion. I do ask for caution and mindfulness, as I'm sure we wouldn't reach out to a Hamas organization to get the opinion of Palestinians. Maybe we shouldn't reach out to organizations that so staunchly support Israel and Zionism to get the opinion of the Jewish people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, hi. My name is Gray, and although I'm actually not a resident of Midvale, I come from Glendale, and I'm misrepresented by Alejandro Poy of Salt Lake City District 2. I'm sure maybe you have heard what's been going on in Salt Lake City District, or Salt Lake City Council, and so I come to you today instead of my own council, because my own council refuses to listen to the will of the people. And I would just want to thank you for coming with open ears to your constituents, and welcoming me here as well. I think it's great that that this council is open to discussing a ceasefire resolution, and I'm going to share with you today why it's important to me. First, of course, is due to the horrors that our tax dollars are perpetuating in Palestine. Hopefully you are aware, but to give you a brief update, today many of us that are sitting here are sitting with immense grief from witnessing the besiegement and massacre that took place in Al-Shifa Hospital, along with the Israeli-induced famine that is taking place in the north of Gaza, and the many flower massacres, and of course the World Kitchen massacre that was mentioned earlier tonight. If I were to go on with all the grief that we're sitting with, I would run out of time. But hopefully, if anything that I've mentioned is new to you, you will go on to research it in more detail for yourself. I hope that this resolution recognizes that the people of Midvale wish that the U.S. House of Representatives and Senators sign on to the U.S. House Resolution 786, which urges the Biden administration to immediately call for and facilitate de-escalation and a permanent ceasefire to urgently end the current violence. That House resolution also calls upon Biden administration to promptly send and facilitate the entry of humanitarian assistance into Gaza. The resolution should also directly pressure our congressional representatives and President Biden by saying that here in Midvale, we do not agree with their funding of the genocide in Gaza with our tax dollars. The U.S. sends $3.8 billion in military funding to Israel annually. 533,877 of those dollars come right here from Midvale, Texas. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
What was that resolution number?
That's House Resolution 786.
Thank you. Going once. All right.
Hi, I'm Soraya Vandiver. I was here last week. I'm just here to echo the sentiment of my peers. I wasn't planning on talking today, but hearing their words helped move me too. I want to thank you guys for opening a dialogue with us. Salt Lake City Council has not been very receptive to hearing us and to treating my peers with very much respect. I'm also here to urge you to pass the ceasefire resolution, and I saw that Olivia sent some good recommendations of alterations that you guys could use, and like Olivia's done a really great job organizing this, and I fully stand behind her. Oh yeah, sorry. The lack of support for the genocide in Israel, there's more and more polls coming out showing that the vast majority of Americans don't support what's happening. And it's clear as we send more weapons that Joe Biden, that the higher ups don't care about what we say. And it's just refreshing to see that some members of our government actually care about what their constituents want. It gives us hope that maybe the government can be used for good and for the will of the people. I think you guys are on a really good path towards a call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire, and I'm just here to encourage you to continue on this path, and thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I do want to respond regarding why we want the ceasefire. Is that okay? Or I can talk to you.
We'll try to think about this.
I mean, I almost think that they want a dialogue.
Yeah.
I would almost support if they talked offline together.
Okay.
Because if she comes up and responds, then she comes up and responds.
The only reason we have to be careful is we treat everybody equally, and so that's if y'all want to talk offline, that's great.
I just wanted to clarify
Yeah.
nothing against anybody, and I was actually so happy that she asked.
Well, microphone. Sorry,
Yeah.
Mayor, you run the show.
No, I really appreciate what you're saying. I know we have people online watching, and so that's the only thing is they can't hear you. If we invite, it just creates some odd dynamics for us. So that's all. Okay. Okay, I'm double checking one more time. Come on up. As he's coming up, the one thing I'm just going to clarify, and I think most people understand this, but we did get an email today that I don't know if the clarification was there. Just so everybody knows, Midvale City government is not cutting a check for any international thing that would be including bombs, military weapons, anything like that, right? You pay federal taxes, I pay federal taxes, and so I understand that where some of that comes from. I just want to clarify that because I know we got an email today where I think this person thought we were cutting a check, and that is not the way this works. Just to clarify.
Thank you for clarifying.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My concern pales in insignificance what they're doing, but my name is Brent Bergen, and I'm a resident of Midvale. I live at 7542 Jefferson Street. First, I wish to thank each of you for your service. I know you do spend a lot of time in our behalf, and I thank you. I wish to make some comments relating to the agenda item to approve amendments to the Chapter 9.32.090 of the Midvale City Code. The amendments have been prepared by the city staff to provide an added experience to the patrons of events and to further encourage the activation of Midvale Main Street. My concern is the broad scope of the original amendment, which is now Attachment A. Attachment A would allow, with proper permits, alcohol consumption in all public spaces within the city limits. If approved, this would affect every family whose home borders parks, public places, public buildings, streets. I suggest we focus first on the stated desires of the city staff. City staff wishes to activate Main Street. If we want to allow, with proper permits, the consumption of alcohol in public Main Street, then let's please allow it on Main Street or a designated area for that experience. And that designated area could be historic Midvale or something like that. If our experience is good and it is activating Main Street, then we could broaden our scope. I share a common property line with City Park. I recommend that city parks not be included in the initial amendment. Let's gain some experience before we open up to the parks to the alcohol consumption. I talked with several of my neighbors and they share my same concerns. I wish a change as potentially far-reaching as this were handled more like a zone change, where there was a public notice published. If they were aware of the proposed changes, I think more citizens would want to review and voice their opinion. Have citizens brought this issue to the city? I thank you for your support and for your time, and I ask that you consider taking a more disciplined approach to the proposed changes. Think big, start small. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll give 5 seconds. Better stand up if you want to get public comment. Come on up.
5 seconds to get to the mic.
Yeah, and just please state your name.
My name is Meg Griffiths. I am a resident in Salt Lake, and so I'm coming to you not as a resident of your city, but just along with my peers who I've been listening to online in support of and in such gratitude for putting a resolution on your agenda. It means a lot to us. You, I'm sure, have heard so many things that my peers have shared, and we're passionate about this. We're here to talk to you. We're here to have conversation. We're so grateful that you're listening. I know that you're aware that there are atrocities across the world, across the country, in our state, in this city. There are so many things happening. There's so many things that you're attentive to. And we're grateful for that, and we honor that you are representing our voices. It means a lot to us. And one of the things that I think is so, it's devastating to us, and I'll say that I have a connection to the land of Palestine. I studied at BYU. I studied at the Jerusalem Center. And I have this connection to these people. And with everything that's and really when I was there, I didn't even fully understand until I really dug into what's going on, and what we're seeing now after October 7th, and since then the last 6 months. With I think I'm gonna go here. Today I've been in deep grief. I've been in deep grief many days in the last 6 months, thinking about the people who I was with, who taught me, who fed me, who I communed with in Jerusalem specifically, but all across that land. Thinking about my peers who are local here, who are Palestinian, and the grief that they have for their families and their loved ones. Watching the news and seeing bodies and body parts and children strewn across the streets, and hospitals and schools and medical facilities and aid workers being murdered, and everything, the entire land being decimated. And this is a place that I lived not far from for a summer. And I'm so closely connected to it, and it's happening in our hearts, the hearts of the local people here. And if we could, through you, use our voices to call for a ceasefire, that would really mean a lot to us. And so we're here trying to advocate for that, and we're grateful for the efforts that you're putting into that. So thank you. Free Palestine.
Okay. Unless, oh, nope, okay. All right, we're going to call it a wrap then. Appreciate you all being here. I can't, Aziz, I appreciate you.
I'm not just gonna. I'm just gonna say about that. We have a forum. If you guys want to learn, that we hold at the Salt Lake City Library twice a month. Reach out to us if you want to learn.
It'd be great to have, Olivia, if you want to pass along information, it'd be great. Again, just with having people online and such.
So what he said was that there's a forum at the Salt Lake City. I just know I've already gotten a ton of texts and stuff about this, so they're already asking. So forum, Salt Lake City, if you want to learn more about it. Right?
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. All right, we're going to move into reports. So mine's up first. Two just really quick things. I think the one gentleman that was here who had the kid has left, but this is just a good reminder for everybody. I believe that Salt Lake County's new free recreation pass program has officially started. So I think they already don't charge from 0 to 5, but now from 5 to 18. You do have to go into a rec center and get registered, but the county just passed this. So now kids who are in I shouldn't say kids who are in public school, but kids who are school age, 5 to 18, can now get into rec centers free. I know, Laura, you're back there. I'm hoping we can push out something like that. I know we have a lot of kids in this community who could use that. So really grateful for the county for doing that and getting it up and running so quickly. And I've been told they've already had a great reception of people getting signed up. Just second to last thing, bulky waste pickup. As a reminder, everybody, any Midvale residents, you want to put your bulky waste out. That started this week and goes until next week, depending on when your regular trash pickup day is. Please keep in mind to not put them in the gutters so we can keep those storm drains clear so water can freely flow. That's all I got. Councilmember Glover.
Yeah, but the only thing I have tonight is I pass along that talked to several businesses on 7200 and we're thankful for UPD listening to their concerns and hope to have a great working relationship with them. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Billings.
I just wanted to reiterate that I am having a community conversation next Tuesday at 6:30 here at Town Hall for the folks in my district who live in the Casa streets. We're going to talk about community safety and neighborhood safety, so we're really excited about that. We will start passing out flyers this week to invite members of that neighborhood to join us. And it is open to anyone, but it is focused particularly on the Casa streets.
Thank you. Councilmember Gettle.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to thank everyone who came tonight to speak so passionately about the issue in Gaza. And I know we'll have more to say as a council as we continue this process of considering a resolution, but I didn't want it to go unnoticed that we appreciate, as always, you sharing your opinions and facts and figures. So thank you. One other thing, completely unrelated and seems a little silly at this point, but I finally have our trophy for our fantasy football champion, and I brought it here today. So this is for Public Works Jim Walkingshaw, who walked all over us in the fantasy football league this year. I'm going to pass it around because I am pretty proud of the trophy that I got on Etsy for him, but I just wanted to pass it around. That's it for me, Mayor.
This was sitting here and I was going, what is this? I don't understand so this makes more sense.
And if it can make its way down to Glenn can give it to Jim. Okay, cool. That's it. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone, shukran, as well, for the Arabic speakers. Assalamu alaikum. I'd like to say I appreciate everyone on both on all these issues. I'd also like to let Brent know that we had a lot of public comments on it, and they maybe don't always come here and show up, but a lot of people do reach out in other methods, right? Whether that's email, text, I'm on any issue, whether it's the park issue or this one. I love when I see a lot of people come, even if I don't agree, right? Even if I'm like, okay, they're misreading what we're writing for this resolution or this new change. It gives me opportunity to engage. And And one thing I would like, the reason why I'm bringing this up is, the public notice idea for something, I understand what you're saying generally, but I would like the citizens of Midvale, if they go online to our website, you can sign up for alerts to read everything that happens, and you can just get an agenda. You don't even get the full packet. It's a few pages. I would love that every week I get 10 or 20 emails just telling me, I like this, I don't like this, what does this mean? Because I feel way more empowered to make decisions where I think I know what people want, but when I get 20, 30, 50 people, I feel more confident. And so I appreciate it. It's more of an appreciation towards just public engagement in general. On the local level, sometimes we don't get it. It's usually someone doesn't like the house going next to them or the business, and we get a lot. And, I just encourage people to comment on stuff, even if it's not directly related to you, if that makes sense. Because, we're one city, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Robinson.
Thank you. I too just wanted to say thank you for everyone that's come and spoken to us about this, especially the ceasefire. I think sometimes our lens is somewhat limited until someone maybe points it out to you that you should be paying attention to this. And so wanted to say thanks for that, because as Councilmember Brown said, this is important, and this is what we should be doing, is talking and learning and disagreeing and all of that in a good way, and this is how we do it. So I too wanted to say thank you for that, and I appreciate it. And I know sometimes it's scary, so I really appreciate you guys getting up here, weeks on end and doing it, because it means a lot, and I want you guys to know that. So that's all I have.
All right, City Manager Dahl.
Yeah. I have nothing to say.
That's weird. Heidi said more than you.
It's never happened.
That was okay.
I always feel like when I hear that, Matt, I appreciate you as a city manager.
It's always okay to say less, right, Matt?
That's right. That's right. It's not normally my forte.
Did everybody see this? Pretty fancy. Guy in a chair, football helmet on. I've never received a trophy that nice. So. A little disappointed.
One day you might, Mayor.
All right, we're going to move into our action item. Consider ordinance number 2024-005, approving amendments to Chapter 932-090 of the Midvale Municipal Code regarding alcoholic beverages in the public parks and public places. Kate.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. After the item last week, we went back as staff, and we are bringing before Council two options as far as the amendment goes. I'll just kind of quickly go over the different options. So option one, also known as attachment A, this would allow the consumption of possession of alcohol on public property, including public parks and public right-of-ways. So it's what we saw last time. Council asked that we bring back examples of what type of events might host beer gardens or serve alcohol, and in looking across the state, there were a few. Salt Lake City obviously has more than just one, but I was trying to give a plethora of different cities that have offered or that have events like this, but it includes like the Salt Lake City Living Traditions Festival, Ogden's Twilight Concert Series has a beer garden, both Park City and Salt Lake City's arts festivals offer it, and then Moab Music Festival was another example. And as to why events would do or offer such a thing, really it's just this belief that it's a way that an event can provide an added experience to the people that are coming to those events, and it's also thought to be a significant draw for increased participation. And then option two would allow the consumption and possession of alcohol on public property under certain regulations and conditions, with the exception of public parks. Ultimately, it's up to City Council to decide. I know a lot of you are going to go and talk to your constituents. So the recommended motion, you can either enter attachment A or B based upon whatever the City Council decides.
Any clarifying questions for Kate or
I just have a couple of questions for Garrett. I've had reached out to me and they've asked in the public intoxication prohibited in the ordinance. Would you explain that? And then also in the definition, the one I got here, and I think it's changed on there, but I'm not sure, is about not putting parks in the definition.
Yes, so
if you'll just explain those two.
So intoxication, being intoxicated in public is always going to be illegal, whether with this change or not. It is illegal for someone to be intoxicated while in public. So that won't change. And with this ordinance, under either option, it will be illegal for someone to consume alcohol in a public place, unless it is in a designated place that has been approved by DABS. Thank you, Mayor. And also has been approved by the city with their event permit or whatever their alcohol license is, and is part of their site plan. So it will be illegal for someone to show up and have a family birthday party without the approval of the city, without the approval of DABS, and to consume alcohol at the park under either one of these options, because they don't have the proper permits or the permissions, and they're unlikely to get it from DABS with their stringent requirements. It will always be illegal for anyone under either of these two options to consume alcohol to the point that they're intoxicated. It will also be illegal for the providers under either of these two options to serve alcohol to someone who is intoxicated. So under either of these options, all of those things will remain illegal. The two options that are in front of you tonight, so under the first option, it would allow the consumption of alcohol within a regulated space, again, that's identified by a site plan that's reviewed by the city and approved by the city, as well as a site plan that has been reviewed and approved by DABS. The first option would allow that in any public place, including public parks. The second option, you will see, I believe it's under subsection C. The public park has been removed. So subsection B says, except for as provided under subsection C, it is unlawful for any person to consume an alcoholic beverage or to possess an alcoholic beverage except in a sealed container at any public park, public place, public building, stadium, street, alley, sidewalk, or roadway. So only with this change, the only places where it will be permitted to consume or possess alcohol, again, within those requirements, if it's within a site plan approved by the city and approved by DABS, but it would be limited to public places, public buildings other than the Midvale Community Center, since that is in the middle of the park, stadiums, streets, alleys, sidewalks, or roadways. But you'll notice that parks are not a permitted place where it will ever be legal to consume alcohol or possess alcohol, except in a sealed container, period. So that's the difference between attachment A and attachment B.
Thank you.
I'd say I got probably more comments for this than anything I've ever had in a short period of time. And again, like I said in my opening statement, I absolutely I think that's great, right? So I don't want someone to think, oh, he's annoyed he got all these comments. I think it's a very good thing. But what was said, in the public comment is exactly how I feel. It was very eloquently put. Is, I think almost everyone sees that it could work on Main Street and be a benefit on Main Street. And what I think we all need to realize is this is a pretty big change for this community. Just the idea of it. And so I like the idea of taking what I would call like a phased approach, right? Like, let's see it work. Let's see that it works on Main Street. And, a lot of the misconceptions or whatever that, people are worried about will either be right or wrong, right? And we can then adjust, what we decide today is not forever, and, we're not going to get the Salt Lake City Arts Festival, tomorrow, right? So we have time to I think, see if it works, show people it works. I think there's things that needed to be just said more, and I don't know how to say it more, is, these are temporary, right? And we've said temporary every time, but a lot of people, I don't know if they envision what that means, right? So it wouldn't be like every day in the park, right? Like driving here in the park again, I saw youth football, right? It feels like they're there every day, practically. I would like them to always have the rights over any private party kind of thing, not just this scenario, because that's what parks are for, in my opinion, right? And I just don't see something being approved next to a bunch of, we wouldn't want to say, hey, you could have these private events like this while everyone else is playing youth football. The parking lot alone is nuts with youth football to begin with, right? So I think, me personally, I don't know how the rest of the council goes. I just wanted to put my 2 cents out there on it. Like I get it. I get the community's concerns. I appreciate what the city has done. Like I said, let's offer new experiences. But I think we just, hey, let's start where we know it'll work right away, where we think it's going to work right away, so we can show it works. Opposed to having, someone, we're unprepared for something in the park on a Sunday request, and we don't know if we want that or not, if that makes sense. That's my opinion. I think Main Street will show that it's limited, that it's contained, that it works, or it won't, right? And then we can adjust, and it could be in 6 months or a year, or the next city council version of me, of us up here with Glover can decide. I will never not tease you on that, by the way. So just, anyways, that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you. Just one thing I wanted to throw out, I don't know why I didn't think about this. Last week we kept talking about, do we have any examples of anybody asking for it? The Paul family through Cinco de Mayo actually did recently come to us and said that they wanted to be able, they've been trying to restart Cinco de Mayo again. And one of the last conversations we had with them, they were talking about trying to get Bud Light to sponsor, because they were they were struggling with or they wanted to grow it with sponsorships, and the city hadn't promised to do much financially for it. And in that case, I'm going to assume they were going to sell beer with that too, and not just have Bud Light's name on it.
But I think on that scenario, and regardless of which one we pass, that should still happen on Main Street. We should close Main Street like we've done, and do the events on Main Street like we have.
In this scenario, they do not want to do it on Main Street.
I understand that they don't want to, but that's not, I appreciate that, Mayor. I guess I like when we've done events where we've closed Main and it had stuff, and we need to push people there. Now I get that, on the south end, there's a lot of construction, and so it might not look pretty at the moment, but.
And it might look a lot better once we have lighting and all the other things that we're doing forward with it.
Another thing is the Cactus and Tropicals place that mentioned they were going to have like a community meeting / gathering part of that facility, like for private events. I mean, that could be a really good location for a beer garden in the future. I just wanted to clarify this, if we would pass this without the public parks portion of it, that would allow for, like we had outside the tavern 2 years ago, like a beer garden, right? So those things could still happen. They would just happen at events that were on Main Street, and perhaps even in our new, whatever we're calling, what the food truck area is going to be, the plaza. That's right. That escaped me for a second. So we could have something there as well. So I think those are two pretty decent locations for a beer garden, and as Councilmember Brown said, see how that goes. And I'm assuming the sky is not going to fall once we do those two things, and then we can have the broader discussion of public parks. Because I would like to hear a perspective from our police chief or lieutenant and see what you guys might think or experiences other cities have had, positive or negative, with public parks and alcohol and the introduction of those two things, especially when it comes to like hot summer days. One other concern I mentioned, and maybe Garrett can have an answer for this now, is there was a thought of, if we allow it at public parks, we will still have the final say of what events are allowed to do that or not. I would assume that we'd run into some legal troubles if, say, the Cinco de Mayo committee said, hey, can we have alcohol at the public park? Look, we have all this approval from the DABC, and we say, yes, of course, it's Cinco de Mayo, let's have margaritas. And then the next group comes in and we don't have a relationship with that group, and we say, nah, we probably don't want alcohol for that meeting or that activity. So would we run into trouble that way in telling one group yes and one group no? Therefore, essentially, we don't have any sort of discretion when it comes down to it.
The law with local consent, when we can permit it and when we can withhold it, is more gray. So I can't provide really firm legal advice on that front. I can tell you if we are concerned about, like we discussed in our last meeting, if it were just about the rental agreement to use the park for a purpose, anytime we're discriminating between viewpoints is going to be problematic. When it comes to the alcohol, the local consent for alcohol, the state hasn't made it very clear, and for better or for worse, there haven't been a lot of lawsuits to clarify that issue.
Okay, that doesn't help, but I appreciate that answer. So in the end, then, you think that we could have some legal support to say, I'm going to use this terrible example again, but yes to Cinco de Mayo committee, but no to Hell's Angels 50th anniversary reunion at the park.
Can I ask, just to tag on to that, so like with sponsorships, we're doing this values portion. Is that something we could do with this to give us some discretion that is written of how we would approve or not?
So my general legal advice when it comes to anything that is state controlled is just local government discretion is being taken more and more and more away from. So that discretion, especially as you are all familiar with land use decisions, has pretty much been taken away altogether. That the city council doesn't have a lot of land use discretion other than what zones, what ordinances they pass, but deciding to say this project is acceptable and this project is not, those days are gone. So I would always err on the side of whatever is decided upon by the council, that it be written in such a way that we always are comfortable with the end result, and it doesn't come down to discretion, that if there are certain things that we need to consider or whatever, that we need to write it that way of this is acceptable and this is unacceptable. And then that way we're never in that position of bringing it to city council and having to operate in an area of this is your decision and I can't guarantee you whether or not you're going to be sued.
You can always sue someone. Sorry.
I do like the opinion that if we do it in the parks, we do the B first, and then later in the parks, we actually have public hearings and let the whole community weigh in on whether they want it or not want it.
I just wanted to reiterate Councilmember Gettle's desire to hear from law enforcement, because I am curious if it does create more heartburn for law enforcement in particular, and also is the capacity there to support these kinds of events. Those are kinds of things that I would really be interested in hearing. And then in terms of like the, seeing what it does on Main Street and then pushing it forward to parks at some point. I know there's been some private events that have had beer gardens or events, and I'm just wondering if those are, I know they're private events, they're not public, and I know that's the difference here, but are those events not, can we not consider those as examples of it working in a outside type thing?
I would also like to add, I would like to hear from Public Works on, I feel like there's a big ask for them unintentionally if it ends up in the park, right? Like, do they have to, because I just know when we do just concerts, we try to not involve them, but we usually need someone there to, would call them because there's some sort of issue, or whatever. Like, would this add to Glenn's, bandwidth and him saying, we need more resources?
Can we, Lieutenant Malone, I know, your boss goes out of town, and do you want to come up and provide some insights?
So alcohol is kind of a tricky subject. I think if we're talking about the responsible consumption of alcohol, has very little impact on public safety, on law enforcement. It's the irresponsible use of alcohol that becomes problematic. And I know there's been some talk, Councilmember Gettle mentioned the Hells Angels 50th anniversary get-together. That's a much different story than an arts council that wants to have a beer garden or something like that. So I think it's important to take into consideration the group that is petitioning for the alcohol license, as well as how responsible they're going to be in regards to that. Because we have responsible members that consume alcohol all day, every day, and they aren't a problem to law enforcement. They aren't a problem to public safety. There's a lot of safeguards in place with the DABS to prevent over-serving and the like. And it's not very often we get people wandering around the park completely intoxicated, causing problems. I mean, more often than not, it's somebody that's got themselves intoxicated in their home or another's home, or just a party, something along those lines. It's not often where we even go to a bar establishment to deal with intoxication. So in my opinion, it depends on how responsive they're going to be and what the event is going to entail. Does that clarify anything? Any other questions I could answer?
Have one question about that. Because I was kind of talking about those private events that have already been held on Main Street, and I don't know if you were around at that time, but were there any, if you were, do you recall any issues, any problems?
We have not had, well, I can recall one minor problem of an intoxicated female that we just kind of escorted off the property. And she wasn't really a problem, other than she was saying things that to people who didn't want to hear it, basically. But all the events I've been here, that's the one isolated incident where alcohol was a problem in the slightest.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think we're good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, as far as Public Works is concerned, if I'm understanding things correctly, it's a contained area, and whoever is running that would be responsible for cleanup, et cetera. So I don't see it being an added issue for Public Works.
But the next day, whenever the trash cans are overflowing at our public parks, which typically does happen after a big event, and that falls upon.
Again, if I'm understanding it correctly, all consumption would be in that contained area, and so it wouldn't be any additional resources outside of that area.
Plus, it's not really that's not due to the alcohol, that's due to the event. So that's kind of a byproduct, if you ask me. So.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is that everything Glenn said, like, I don't know that the event having alcohol would be more of an issue, but having more events would be. Just
well, it requires like fencing and stuff, right, and whatnot. I know that they would set it up or whatever.
Yeah, they would be.
But anytime you're building something or constructing something on the park, in the park or the area, there is a chance that, oh, we need more electrical or, something, and they're calling them. So that adds more than just any event, right? Because there are statutory requirements on what that you have to have.
Can I add to that really quick? So that would probably be vetted out during the review process. So they would apply for the event, provide a site plan, and then if there were issues with that site plan, we would identify and say, no, not here due to this, or et cetera.
And if they're a problem, then we don't. If they do cause you a headache, then we don't accept them again in the future or whatever. And even though Garrett says that's an issue, I think if we can show cause, it's not. But
I do want to jump in on here really quick, just to say that I'm fine with a phased approach to this, but I think we also need to really consider the fact that this city has been pushing, I'm sorry, Dustin, was it connectivity? Connectivity?
Connectivity is my word.
Connectivity and walkability, and we've talked about it a lot, the vibrancy of a city. And this is a great way for us to be able to connect Main Street with the park, with some possibility of some events that would be very unique and offer some amazing community experiences. So I would hate to see us limit ourselves on some possibilities that, in all honesty, are highly regulated events. These businesses are putting their businesses on the line, their licenses on the line. So as Garrett and everybody's brought up, this isn't like somebody having a kegger at the park. This is, these are like pretty organized events, and this opens us up to some serious possibilities, especially with our art, our focus on public arts, and I just want to make sure we're not limiting ourselves on things that aren't really going to be an issue. So.
I don't have a vote on this, but the reason because I hear the neighborhood concern too, and I don't live right on the park. I live near, but not right on. So the perspective is different. But really the way that I've looked at this is just that I feel like we get asked for more events all the time. I just saw, not that they would be serving alcohol at this one, but I just saw there was a Midvale residents post about, are you guys going to do an Easter egg hunt or something? Like, I just feel like there's just things.
With beer gardens.
Yeah, little beer cans in each of the eggs. No, but I feel like we get asked for events all the time, and like our staff does a great job with the events that we do, but at capacity. And I would love to see more community events coming in, but I just we don't have the capacity to do it. We are not seeing people come to us time and time again saying, oh, we want to bring in all these events. And like when we look at these different festivals and things that happen, I don't know that it's because of the alcohol, but I think they're looking for that option. And I think as we see that is always an option. And how many festivals have we all been to somewhere where you're not seeing people walk around just sloshed out of their minds.
Well, and we already said that that's illegal too.
Yeah.
So that's not changing now.
And so I feel like, as Councilmember Robinson, as you just said, I see it as an opportunity to expand some of the things that we're doing to create, to really, all the time we talk about what is that Midvale identity, and there's lots and lots of ways that we're working to do that. And to me, this is a step in that. I'm also with Councilmember Robinson, if the phased approach is the answer, I can live with that. We're already, I think we only improve from here where we're at. But I just think it does provide the way that the state runs this is that it's very contained, and I think provides some good opportunities for us to bring in some really interesting events that otherwise our residents wouldn't get here.
I grew up back east, and I just want to say if I would not have been able to go to any event if my family wanted to avoid places that served alcohol, right? It's very different. New Jersey, whether it's a community event or whatever, it's a lot more freely available, right? And you learn that you can make the choice whether you consume it or not, right? Like, it's not a forced thing. So at a very early age, I was used to seeing it at most events, and I think that was fine. But at the same time, no, I just know it's a big change for people that have been here for 50, 60,
100 years.
100 years
Like
on council.
Oliver.
And so, you know, I just, it's more of a respect thing to that, you know, show them it works, you know, not tell them it will. And that's where I'm at. It's not because I don't think it's going to fail. But I'd like to be able to show them it, you know, like here's 10 in a row this summer, you know, look, it was fine. You know, there's no, you know, Public Works didn't have to clean up after them, and there was no, you know, police reports and stuff like that you know, caused, you know, all this extra bandwidth. And I know people are like, it's not going to, but again, I think you have to realize the change is very big for a lot of people, you know, and that's where I'm coming from. It's a respect towards the community on that.
I, you know, not opposed to a phased-in approach. I think that's good. I just want to make sure if that's the direction that we decide to go as a council. I'm not sure I want it to be super nebulous and like we'll just figure it out when we figure it out. Is we could have like a timeline to readdress that. I think would be really helpful, so that we can kind of have that beginning piece on Main Street and then study it for 6 months or whatever that looks like, and then readdress the issue. I think that would be a direction I'd like to see, so it's not just kind of a, we'll see when we feel like it again.
I don't mind that as long as we have a public hearings on it and the whole city can have an input into really what.
And I think
we can listen.
Those marry, right? Because it's easier to get the city to notice, whether it's through social media and public, if we do pick sort of a timeline or a date, opposed to just one day we'll do it in the future, and then all of a sudden it's on the agenda, right? Like, so I agree with both of your comments.
What do you think, like one season of events?
Well, so one of the things I was going to ask Kate is, do you know if the Tattoo Showdown is doing a beer garden?
It says it is online.
Yes, they are.
I was going to say, they have done it at their past events, so
I'm just trying to figure out, because we'll have, we're looking at one for Mural Festival.
Yeah, so we've already
So
had.
I'm just trying to say that would be 2.
We've had 3 already. We'll have 2 that are planned. And then I don't know if there's any more after
this
that.
year of events, this summer, spring, summer, fall of events, and then readdress this about a year from now.
Yeah, or November or whatever.
At the end of the event season.
I would keep it relevant to this year, right?
Yeah.
So, and then open it up. I mean, that's my opinion. Like again, it's just out of respect for, you know, I got a lot of comments. A lot of them were, you know, like, oh no, Copperview, and I'm like, hey, that's county. Like, no matter what passes, you know, it doesn't impact it. And like, oh, that's good to know. You know, this isn't. It's temporary, not permanent. Oh, that's good to know. So part of it could be during that season. I think part of the thing that will help is messaging to show them how it works. You know, like they have to get a state approval. It's for a day. You know, it doesn't carry over to, or whatever, the event period. It doesn't, you know, it's not a permanent thing. Like, I just think it's just an unknown to people. And if we can just message it and then decide.
I mean, personally, I would prefer 1 year to go through a complete season and just see how it goes.
Yeah.
But we have been doing, we've been over almost
I just
a year
figured
for our
November,
first
no
beer
one's doing it
garden,
after
so.
that.
The perspective, I just can't help myself to say is I love that it is an unknown, and I think it's an unknown because of how tight these operations are. And because I guarantee that, I mean, I would think that just about anybody living in Midvale that is old enough to be paying attention to city stuff has probably been to a festival where there has been alcohol allowed. And if they're not recognizing that, I mean, I think it just speaks to how, if you're not a drinker, like, I think that's the goal, is that you do not notice, right? That you're just, so, anyway, so I think that's interesting.
If we are going to take public comment on this, I'm really hoping that Ms. Barrett, right? Olivia, I hope you will help organize to get people to actually talk. So that would be really nice.
You have your next issue, Olivia. All right, Matt, did you want to add something?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that over the last few years, we have had a lot of staff pushing to change and bring in a variety of new events, and a lot of them are pushing limits. Admittedly, fire pits in the street really make me nervous, and it required some convincing in order to make that happen. But
can I just do this is our Light Up Main Street event held every December, and come and play with fire pits.
We don't play in the fire pits. My point to all this is just to say our staff works really hard, and a part of this is that we have not had a breadth of events that are able to engage with the diverse community that we have. And a lot of the new events are bringing in people that didn't necessarily participate in future or previous events, and a lot of work goes into this, and we'll continue to bring things to you guys to consider. This is just something we want you guys to consider with the parks. We're not, if you guys vote on option B, that's fine. We absolutely hear you. Part of the reason I'm saying this is I feel like there have been some comments that I've seen that seem to imply that staff is trying to do something against the community. Yeah. And really, we're just saying, we're bringing this, you guys are considering it, whichever way you go is great. If you want to have public comments on the next thing, we're totally open to that. But at the same time, we will continue to bring things to you that are going to be looking at how do we engage with populations that we really haven't before. And that may make some folks that, think that those things that we're pushing might not be the events for them, and that's okay. But we want to make sure that we have offerings for everyone in our community. And so, we will implement whatever you guys want us to as far as policy.
So I just want to say I've been very vocal about it today on it in general, and I want to make sure it's clear that I know that. I know that that's what you're doing, and I have had some emails that sort of made it seem like, in the darkness of night, you're trying to pull this over our heads, this alcohol drinking everywhere, right? And the staff is just doing a phenomenal job to bring potentially new ideas. I hope they keep doing that. I hope they don't feel like, oh no, I would much rather them give us, all of the ideas, extreme ideas, different ideas. We get public comment and maybe we tailor it down a little bit or keep it. But I hope from my perspective, I'm not speaking for the council. I appreciate all of you guys. I think you did great work, and keep doing it.
I'd like to echo that and say thank you, Matt. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, staff, for putting this together. Our jobs as public officials elected by the public are to make these hard decisions, and you guys have done a great job in presenting us the information I think we need. That said, I'm completely undecided. I have no idea how I'm going to vote, and it's all going to depend on who makes the motion and which motion they make.
I want to just say one more thing, and I can't remember what it was.
Sure, it was great.
She wanted to thank everybody. I did, yes. Oh, I wanted to say I did hear from informations, and granted, my district doesn't have a ton of parks, and we're kind of removed from that, but the information that I've received is pretty split. Like this, it's not weighted one way or the other. So, I think that it's a really good idea to kind of consider compromise a little bit, but I do think if we're going to do a phased approach, I think waiting a whole year is probably not the best idea, because we do want to make sure we've done enough time for people to be able to plan for the next spring and summer. And if we wait until April of next year, it's going to be really hard for those events. So then we're not going to then see that kind of thing. So I think it'd probably be smarter to do it after the summer, after the fall, to readdress it.
Councilmember Billings on that. If we are going to do it, I do think it should be after this spring, summer, so that people have adequate time to plan. And also, I actually did speak to not a numerous amount of people, but some people in my district regarding this, and I think the knee-jerk reaction was, this is bad. And then when we talked through the process that goes into even submitting through this, and then it goes through, it's DABS now, right? Mm-hmm. It's not DABC. DABS, and they have to have a site plan, and what goes into that. A lot more people were like, oh, okay, actually this could be good. This is okay. Because I think the automatic assumption was that it's just going to kind of be a free-for-all at parks. And that's not really what this is. So if we are going to do the phased approach, I really hope we can work on our messaging so that people understand what this is, what it entails.
I would say yes, that most people who were opposed to this were under the impression that we were going to just start allowing anyone to consume alcohol at our public
At the
parks,
park, yeah.
which, obviously we know is not the case, but yeah, again, I'm undecided, so. I don't really, people have been in this position before. I can't really think of a time where it seems like it's 2-2, and then I honestly have no idea.
The closer to the park, the more they're against it, and I appreciate that, right? We have a gentleman that came in who shares a property line, right? And he has valid concerns, and the further away, it's kind of what I touched on earlier. It's like, well, that's 3 miles from me. It doesn't impact me, right? So I don't care, or that's not the right term. They don't see it the same, right? And even in my district, the closer they are to a park, like a lot of people buy Copperview, which again, once I explained that that's not even an option, they kind of backed off a little bit, but still were against it. But they were very against it when they thought it would be in their backyard, So I do think proximity is likely a motivating factor for a lot of people. But my whole district's pretty close to this. The park that's likely, I can't imagine too many of the parks being options, right? The county park where the baseball fields are. I mean, the county could pass something tomorrow, I guess, and Copperview and the softball fields would have it. And we wouldn't really be able to control that, And I'm guessing they don't want to put it next to the fire station parks. I don't know. I mean, I guess close to first responders. I don't know.
I was thinking the firefighters on,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
not on a call.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 2024-0-05, amending chapter 932, 090 of the Midvale Municipal Code regarding alcoholic beverages in public parks and public places as provided in attachment A.
Second.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second for attachment A.
Just to clarify, Mayor, attachment A includes public parks and public places, correct?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Okay, we do have a motion. Is there further discussion? Okay, Rory, would you call roll, please?
Councilmember Billings,
Yes.
Glover,
No.
Robinson,
Yes.
Brown,
No.
Gettle.
Now, we knew this was going to happen. Can I ask a question first to Nate or anyone in planning or development? Do you think that this will allow for us to attract more groups or events to our public parks? Or do you think this makes no difference?
I think, knowing that we've already had some people that have approached us about it, I think it probably would. I don't think a lot, but I think there will be a few groups a year that would probably consider it. I'm not sure that they would say they're not going to do the event because they're not allowed to, but I do think that there is. I mean, like the mayor said with Cinco de Mayo, we already know that group has approached and has asked if there could be a beer garden for that.
And this is something we could revisit if it turns out to be disastrous, correct? Yes.
That was everybody? Okay, that passes 3-2. Thank you. All right, I don't know how often y'all get to hang out and attend city council meetings, but we are allowed to go into closed sessions for certain items. We do have a closed session tonight to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual. Council, I would ask for a motion to enter into that closed session.
A motion that we move into closed session.
Thank you. We have a motion to move into closed session for the reasons that I stated. Is there a second?
Second.
That motion just clarified, that it's for your stated purpose.
Mayor, I'm going to use the restroom.
Okay.
Uh,
When you make the motion,
Councilmember Glover, will you say aye?
Yes.
Will you vote before you go?
Yes.
Okay,
Hold on.
thank you. I'm just clarifying the motion.
Paul, I'm sorry, 1 second.
I move that we move into closed session for discussion of the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual.
Second.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Rory, would you call roll?
Yes, Councilmember Billings. Yes. Glover.
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Brown.
Yep.
And Gettle.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that passes. All right, we'll take a